Hi, my name is Tiana Karamayas and I'm a cavoodle puppy coach and breeder for Noodle Way and River City Puppies. As a coach, my philosophy is simple. A cavoodle should always complement your lifestyle, not complicate it. And this is the foundation to everything I teach. For almost the past decade, I have been working in the breeding, training, grooming, and veterinary sectors of the small animal industry. I've also been raising cavoodles for the past 16 years, so I have definitely learned a thing or two about the breed along the way. Now, this podcast is all about cavoodles. Raising cavoodles, training cavoodles, grooming cavoodles, breeding cavoodles, and how to shape the behavior of a cavoodle puppy. So, if you're a cavoodle parent or you are looking at adding a cavoodle to your family soon, then this podcast is for you. New episodes will be released each Tuesday morning, and you can follow me across all social media under the name @OodleWay for more tips and advice on cavoodles. Thanks for tuning in. Hello and welcome back to episode 6 of the Cavoodle Coach podcast Rebooted. My name is Tiana Karamayas and I'm your host. In today's episode, I want it to be relevant to what I'm doing in my life right now, which is currently breeding puppies. So in today's episode, what I want to do is I want to help you as the listener to understand a bit more about how to actually find a responsible and reputable breeder. So we're going to cover 3 questions you should ask a breeder before placing down a deposit. So let's jump straight into it. Let's get started with the very first question, which is, what health testing has the breeder done? Now, when we talk about health testing for cavoodles, there are a few layers to it, and I'm going to go through that with you right now. The very first and one of the most important layers is DNA testing. So when you get a puppy, they can get ill, they can get diseases, they can get sick. And some of these diseases and some of these sicknesses can be heritable. So they can be passed on through generations from their parents and their grandparents, etc. And so a responsible and a reputable breeder needs to be doing DNA testing on their adult dogs to make sure that by mating this male and female cavoodle or toy poodle or cavalier together, it's not going to pass on any heritable diseases to the puppies. Now, some of these heritable diseases can be something like dry eyes. It can be IVDD, which means the discs and the spine can easily be moved, and obviously that can cause a lot of problems with the puppy being able to walk properly. There can also be problems with the heart that can be passed on. There can be problems with the brain that can be passed on. There really is an entire list of diseases that also can be common to cavaliers and common to poodles. So what a breeder should be doing in Australia is they should be going through a company called Orovet. And Orovet is a DNA testing company. The breeder is able to purchase a profile test for cavoodles, which means the test will test the diseases common to the breed. They'll be able to do it on both the mum and the dad. And then depending on the results, they can either ensure, number 1, the puppies will be healthy and they're not going to have any diseases, or number 2, they'll quickly realize, okay, I cannot mate these 2 dogs. So when you go to a breeder, you have to ask them, what health testing have you done? Have you done DNA tests? And if so, can I please see the results? Now, once you get these results and once you see these reports, for the average family, it's going to go completely over your head. You're going to have no idea what you're looking at. So I'm going to break it down very simply for you. When you have a disease, a dog can either be affected by it, a carrier for it, or they can not have it at all. Now, the preferable option is for the dog to not have it all, so not to be affected, to be clear of the disease, which is what it'll say on the Orovet report. That means they do not carry the genes for it. That's amazing. If they are a carrier of the disease, this is also okay. It means the disease is in their DNA, but the dog is not going to actually be affected by it. They're not going to have any symptoms. It's not going to affect them their whole life. They just carry it in their DNA. If they are affected by it, though, this is a big no-no. It means the dog's actually going to feel the effects of these diseases, and depending on the disease, it can be quite serious. So when you get the mother and the father's results, the 2 DNA test reports, you want to go through, you want to locate the diseases. So degenerative myelopathy, that is one of the diseases. You want to go, okay, is the mum clear affected, or a carrier. And then you go, is the dad clear, affected, or the carrier? You want them both to be clear. That is option 1. Option 2 can be one is a carrier and one is clear. That means the puppies will be okay. Or you can have one affected and the other clear, and that means all the puppies will be carriers. It can get a little bit complicated, but what you want to make sure is that there are no 2 carriers and no 2 that are affected. Now, easiest way to do this is go on Google, do a little Google search and say how to interpret DNA test results for dogs, and it'll come up with a bunch of wonderful, wonderful diagrams. In fact, I think I have a diagram somewhere which I could probably post on my Instagram to help. So maybe I'll go and find that and locate it for you. But the number one thing to remember is that when you look at the results, the mother and the father cannot be both affected by the same disease, and they cannot both be carriers for the same disease. If that is not the case, then the DNA reports are fine and we're good to go. If this doesn't make sense to you and you want me to go into more detail on this and you want me to get into the depths of it, send me an email, send me a DM. I can do another episode on it, but that's the overview. You want neither mum or dad to both be affected or both be carriers. Now, that's the DNA testing. That's very, very, very important. The second thing that is very important is you obviously want to make sure the mum and dad are healthy. So you want to ask the breeder, have they gone to the vets recently? Are they up to date on their vaccinations? Are they up to date on their parasite control? Do they have any conditions that I should know about? So what the breeder should have done is they should be taking their mum and dad dogs to the vet very regularly to make sure that they don't have any loose patellas, which means loose kneecaps, which can lead to cruciate ligament problems, which if your dog tears their cruciate ligament, that's a $10,000 surgery, so we don't want that. And this here can be heritable. Some science does say it can be passed on through puppies, so you want to make sure the mum and dad don't have any problems with their knees. You want to make sure they have no problems with the formation of their teeth, so no base narrow canines. You want to make sure they aren't prone to ear infections or eye infections, no heart problems, what else is there? There's so many things. You want to make sure that the mum and dad are just both healthy. And that means they're good breeding stock, and that means the breeder should go ahead with breeding them. And your breeder should definitely be able to show you a copy of the history of the mum and dad, or they should be happy for you to call their vet, and then you can speak directly to the vet about the mum and dad dogs. This is really important to make sure you do, because some breeders won't tell you everything, and then you might have a dog who suffers with eye infections their entire life, which is really, really difficult to go through. So make sure your breeder is very, very open and honest with you if there are any health conditions of the mum and dad. The final thing I would be saying that you want to make sure is that the breeder can tell you a little bit about the genes of the dog. Not the genes as in the genes you wear, I mean the genes as in the DNA. So I want you to ask the breeder, hey, tell me about the coat genetics of my cavoodle or the cavoodle parents, because what a breeder will be able to know through DNA testing is whether the dog is fully furnished. Now, if you don't know what furnishing is, when we look at a cavoodle, typically they have the long hair on the face. It's that adorable teddy bear face that we love. The hair grows all over the face. If a cavoodle doesn't have that and they don't have the long hair on the face, it doesn't mean they're not a cavoodle, but it means they don't look like a cavoodle. And if you really want that typical cavoodle look who has the long hair on the face, then you need to make sure that the dog is going to be furnished. And when a breeder does the DNA testing, it'll tell them whether the dog is furnished. And this is really important. So double check with the breeder, hey, are these puppies furnished and can I see proof? And they'll have to show you a copy of the DNA reports. Again, you want to be seeing these. You want to be reading these reports. You also want to ask them something like, what is the shedding? What shedding can I expect? Because on the DNA reports, again, it can give you a very good idea of how much the dog is going to shed. We want low shedding dogs, especially if you have any kids or family members who have allergies such as asthma or are allergic to dog hair. We can also test for the genetics. We can also see whether they are likely to be all one color or they're going to have different colors. They might be red with white spots, or they might carry black and they might be phantom, or there's so many things in there. So just make sure you do go to the breeder and say, hey, can you please explain to me the coat genetics of the puppies that you're expecting? Can you show me the results and tell me exactly what to expect and what my puppy will look like? The second really, really important question to ask the breeder is what health guarantee do you provide? So I'm going to say this once, don't ever buy a puppy without signing a contract. You need to safeguard yourself and the breeder needs to safeguard themselves. So if there is no contract being provided, well, this isn't a responsible and a reputable breeder. So there must be a contract that you can review and you can read, and it should outline some kind of health guarantee. So typically, if the breeder has done the correct health testing, they'll be able to guarantee that your dog's not going to be affected by any heritable diseases. Fantastic. That is a really good thing to be looking out for. This contract might say that your dog has to be desexed. Make sure you agree to that. Everyone's happy and on the same page about that. The health guarantee might also outline things like, if you take your dog to the vet within the first few days of getting them and they have an ear infection, I, as a breeder, will cover that because obviously the dog has gotten it from my house, and therefore I'll cover the ear drop, the drops for the ear to get rid of that infection. So just making sure you read through that health guarantee, understand what the breeder is going to provide in terms of support, making sure the breeder is not going to disappear off the face of the earth after you get the puppy or after you place the deposit. There are plenty of scammers out there who will get your money and actually have no puppies. So making sure you've got that health guarantee, you're signing that contract, make sure that contract is enforceable by law and was created by a lawyer, just to safeguard yourself and for the breeder to also safeguard themselves. Something else really important to keep in mind before you place any kind of deposit, of course, is can I see the mum and dog, whether via FaceTime or if they have social media, to make sure they actually post on social media and that there's proof of this person existing. Scammers, there were plenty of them, especially during COVID times, but don't be fooled, they still are around today. And you really need to make sure that there is proof of the breeder existing, the mum and dog mother and father existing, of the puppies existing. And if the breeder is doing the right things, they should have been going to a reproduction specialist, they should have been going to the vet, and they should be happy for you to call the vet to make sure that this dog does in fact exist. So after the health guarantee, signing the contract, after making sure all the DNA testing has been done, the final question you want to ask the breeder is, of course, what do you do with the puppies? How do you raise them? Now, remember, the breeder is going to have these puppies for 8 weeks, the first 8 weeks of their life. And your puppy is in the most critical stage of development they will ever be in from 3 to 12 weeks of age, which means the majority of this time is spent with the breeder. And if the breeder is doing nothing with your puppy, you as the family are going to see the negative results of that. The dog will have anxiety, the dog will have fears, the dogs will have lots of accidents in the house, the dog won't sleep at night, the dog won't know how to share, what will start resource guarding. The list of, negative side effects of a breeder who doesn't do anything with the puppies is endless, and you as the family will have to deal with that for the entire life of your puppy. So you want to ask the breeder, what do you do in week 1 with the puppies? What do you do with week 2? And what about in week 3? And you want to go through and make sure you have a very good idea of, for the first 8 weeks of your puppy's life, what the breeder does. A good, responsible, reputable breeder will have a good understanding of the development of the puppy's brain and will understand exactly what to expose the puppy to each week of its life, depending on this developmental stage, so that your puppy can be set up for success. It can be confident, it can be calm, it can be relaxed, it can be well socialized, well desensitized, and it'll be very, very well adjusted. And that's what you want as a family, to get a puppy of a reputable, responsible breeder who does all this testing with their dogs and does all of this curriculum with them. Now, when it comes into the curriculum of the puppies, I actually am going to, right after this episode, I'm going to record next week's episode where I'm going to go into detail talking about why a curriculum program is so important and what this looks like in terms of my curriculum program. Because once you start to understand just how much of an influence a breeder has on your puppy's personality and demeanor, you will never ever go for a breeder who doesn't have a curriculum program. Your puppy will be so far ahead, will be so advanced, and will be set up for so much success if the breeder does the work with them. You do not want a breeder who works all day and comes home and just gives the puppies food. You want a breeder who breeds as a full-time job and dedicates all day, every day to raising these puppies to the best of their ability. So next week, I'm going to do an episode specifically about what the curriculum should look like for a breeder of cavoodles, because cavoodles have anxiety, and to combat that anxiety and reduce that anxiety, there are specific things a cavoodle breeder must do that is different to other breeders. So I'm going to go into that next week, so make sure you tune in next week for that. But those are the 3 questions to ask a breeder before placing a deposit. Obviously, I also have a bunch of other questions that you should be asking, and if you want me to go and cover those other questions, let me know and I'll do another episode covering those things. But those 3 questions were: what health testing have you done as a breeder on the parent dogs? What health guarantee do you provide? Can I please see the contract? And what do you do with the puppies in terms of their daily curriculum? If you have gone through those 3 questions with your breeder, they have been very, very open with you. They have been answering all of your questions, sending you so many pictures, offering for you to come and meet the mum and dad, or FaceTiming you, giving you the number of their veterinarian. If they have gone over and above to try and accommodate all your questions, that is a good sign that you have found a good breeder. Even better, if they have sold puppies before, if you can see the reviews of past families, maybe you can call a past family and talk to them about it, because a breeder should be open to doing this again. If that communication is fully open and transparent and you have that confidence as the family that this puppy does exist or this breeder does exist, then you can go ahead and you can look at placing that deposit. But not before checking these things off, because if you don't check these 3 things off, already you're not educating yourself enough about the breeder to know what sort of puppy you're going to get. Okay, so that is the end of this episode. That was 3 questions to ask a breeder before placing a deposit. If you enjoyed it, let me know. I can cover some more questions you should be asking. Remember, next week I'm going to be talking all about what the curriculum program for a cavoodle breeder should look like, so that you can understand as a family what to ensure the breeder does to make sure your puppy is set up for success and doesn't have anxiety. So tune back in next week. Thank you so much for listening today. I've really enjoyed talking about this. I'm very passionate about this subject because I am a breeder. And if you are in Australia, if you are in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, and you are looking for a cavoodle breeder, I will let you know that I have just finished mating 2 of my cavoodle girls, and I will be expecting puppies in 9 weeks. And I have 4 positions left on my wait list for puppies this year in 2024. So send me an email, hello@oodleway.co, or send me a DM on my Instagram profile, which is @oodleway, and let me know if you want a puppy, and I can tell you all about my breeding program. Okay, I will see you next week. This has been your cavoodle coach, Tiana Karamayas. See you later.